strategically placed.
Strategically.
See that.
All right, you all ready?
Max said you guys did a full reevaluation during the open date, and one of the primary points of emphasis was communication in the secondary. How do you think that went, and can you gauge progress during an open date, or do you kind of have to wait to see them in a game to see if they really got it?
I think we can gauge progress. I really believe over the last 4 practices, I think we've made a lot of strides. I think the communication's gotten better. I think for, to get a breather and go back and look at when you were playing poorly, why, and you can put it all together and look at not just, a single event or a single game, but put 3 of them together. I think it's pretty glaring. So I feel like in the last 4 days, we definitely have improved in that regard. Now, to your point, we'll know more Saturday night, right? But I feel really good in terms of the players seeing what we need to do a better job of collectively together. And it's not just the secondary, it's everywhere. And that's a defensive line, it's a linebacker. So, but again, being able to kind of take a 3-week, synopsis of everything that happened and really group different issues together to see common themes, I think was really helpful for the guys.
Is it been a matter of just doing what you do better and getting more used to it, or did you change anything, either scheme-wise or personnel-wise?
I think that, number one, it's always about the level of execution. That always needs to get cleaned up and improved, for sure. But, it's also, when you have some time off, you have the ability to, maybe tweak some things schematically that you feel like can help you. After 3 weeks, you can look at, different players and see what their strengths and weaknesses are in games. And so, it was really a combination of all that, right? Us being able to, go back and really say, okay, what are our players best at? What do we need to tweak schematically as coaches to, try to maximize their skill set? And it's always going to be a matter of, executing better. So we need to do that as well.
Is there anything schematically that you can tell us that need a little bit tweaking or altering?
Oh, there's not going to be a lot of, we're not altering a lot of anything, but just little subtle tweaks here and there that we think can help us. And that's whether that's, the front 7 with the run game, whether that's a secondary. I mean, all of those things. And we were looking for, every advantage we could come up with that's not a huge departure from what we do that can help us. So it was kind of all of that.
What's your philosophy on cornerbacks and how they play wide receivers in terms of like press or laying off? It seems like you like to give them a little space in the concepts you run.
Yeah, I think it all depends on, the players. It obviously depends on the scheme, on what we're, trying to do with the rest of the defense. But we never like to give easy access throws. But in some coverages, it really kind of requires that you play more off coverage. So we like to be able to do both. We love to be able to press and to be able to challenge guys at the line of scrimmage and disrupt timing of releases and be able to cover the deep balls. That's the thing that you get into is when you're pressing all the time. Do you have the ability to handle the deep throws? And sometimes we've been good at it, and sometimes we've been inconsistent. Let's say that. So that's why you've seen some off, some on, some press, but we'll mix it up.
Jay, how challenging is it to prepare for a backup quarterback that essentially just has one complete game of film?
Well, at least we have one game, right? So I think he's a very talented young man. I think obviously when you get thrown into a starting role in the conditions that that he was put in, it takes some getting used to. So as far as us preparing for him, I think Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, does a really, really good job of giving him things that give him a chance to succeed. Like you look at the game last week, the first play was an easy access throw. The second play was a tailback slip screen. I think he was easing him into the game right now. And again, that's what you have to do with young quarterbacks, right? So, but their staple is going to be the run game for sure. You could see as the game went on, they had some things for him in the passing game that he got comfortable with. Thought he sat in the pocket really, really well once, the game kind of went on. Thought he got more confidence, he was more poised. He sat back in the pocket and was not jittery. He was looking down the field. And he hit a couple of really big throws. Obviously, the tailbacks in the run game were a huge deal for them Saturday. And all those things can take pressure off a quarterback like that. So, but as the game went on, you could see him, get confidence. And obviously, when you win a game like that, that does a lot for your confidence as well. So, but it was good to at least see a game on him.
And I was going to ask about Power Evans. We kind of maybe knew what to expect from him on the field, but there was a point in the Georgia State game where his leadership kind of took over in terms of gathering guys around. How have you seen him kind of grow in that area of just, his tall game and leadership?
You coach football to be around dudes like that. I mean, just do. That's simply put. He's an amazing young man. I don't know that I've been around a lot of great players over the years. I don't know that I've been around somebody that, maybe he's faking it, I doubt it, but he loves every day of football. I mean, this guy loves every single element of the game. He loves he loves all the ugly parts of football. And that's the practices for 2.5 hours and you're out. I mean, he loves the grind. He loves the dirty parts of the game. And it shows up on game day. He's got amazing leadership ability. I feel like he's coming into his own in terms of feeling like he's earned the right to lead. He was a young guy before, right? And, young guys have to find their leadership role. And a lot of them are reluctant because, they feel like, production from them as players is required to be a leader. It's not always true, but that's how they feel. And he's been very productive. And he is, not only loved the game and all the players around him see how much he loves the game, but now he's starting to be the guy production-wise who can stand up and say, hey, let's go. And people see his production. And it's been fun to watch him evolve as a linebacker for us. He's a guy that plays banged up. He plays through any circumstances, good, bad, or indifferent. Tremendous leader on the sideline. When you talk about trying to find your way through the chaos, he's one of those guys that's a calming force. And I think as the weeks go on, everybody's continuing to look up to him. They see how he works. They see how he prepares. They see how he plays on game day. And it's just been really fun to watch him.
Gene, Michael Mayer is a high-level NFL prospect, probably going to be playing on Sundays. How do you game plan for someone who is such a matchup problem like him?
Yeah, he's definitely a matchup problem. Really athletic, really big, so he can body players out. That's a great thing about a tight end. I don't think people realize the value of a great tight end, right? If they're big and they're physical, then it's kind of a mismatch with a DB, right? Because of the size and length and things of that nature. Then you match them up on a linebacker. A lot of times, athletic ability, there's mismatches there as well. That's why great tight ends in the NFL are at a premium because they put pressure on both. He's one of those guys. I think he is an elite player. And, you always have to know where he's at, and you always have to, have the ability to try to neutralize him. And they do a great job of moving him around so that you're not always sure where he's going to start versus where he's going to finish, which is part of the reason he's been very successful as well. But he's a great player, and our guys will always know where he's at. We'll always be aware of where he's at. But the challenge is stopping him, right? So we're working every day to know where he's at and figure out ways to stop him.
Gene, as you've gone back and looked at like the App State game, Georgia State game, how have you just assessed or tried to understand how things have gone well during stretches and then just sort of veered into the ditch?
Yeah.
Like it seems to be such a, the way these things swing for your defense, like
Yeah,
good and bad.
it's been somewhat of an enigma, to be honest with you. I mean, if you just take the last game we played, I think we did some really good things. Then we had a quarter that you'd love to take back and never look at again, right? Gave up a 99-yard drive, which is inexcusable. And then you turn around and you make them punt 9 times, and you know, you get stops after turnovers, block field goals. So it's the inconsistency when you go back and you look. We're trying to find ways to make sure that we're playing consistent football. I think our best game is definitely ahead of us, and I think it won't be long before we play that best game. And again, learning, you know, knowledge is power, right? And when you can go back and show them the things that have happened, it happened in the App game, right? Played, you know, good 2 quarters, and then, you know, you have an abysmal 4th quarter, I think. This last game was, you know, we had a bad 3rd quarter. So we're looking to find the 4-quarter game. And but when you can go back and look at the reasons why they happened and use those as teaching moments, you know, that's what I'm saying. Knowledge is power. You know what the issues were, and you know why. You have the ability to fix it. So we're still working in that direction for sure to get those fixed. But it has been an issue, and we're looking for our best game.
Coach Brown mentioned, or kind of alluded to, y'all haven't showed everything in the 3 games, and I was wondering your philosophy on that. Obviously, you're not going to show everything against Florida A&M that you're going to show against Notre Dame. Obviously, not giving away stuff, but what's your philosophy on that? And
We have shown everything. We've shown everything. You've seen it all. Not really a true philosophy on that in terms of just, you know, let's hold this till this game, let's hold this till this game. Not that we haven't done that over the years. It's more, what are we ready for? You know, some games, because of the nature of the offense, dictate that you do less. And that can be done because of tempo. That can be done because of a lot of movement, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of formations, and a lot of different gyrations that happen that the defense has to adjust to. So when you have those type of games, it can limit you on what you do. There's other games when it slows down a little bit, there's not as many moving parts, which means you can usually do a little more defense to scratch some different itches. Now, that being said, you know, you don't want to ever do too much, and that's where we're trying to find a good balance on what's too much with our guys in terms of letting them execute. So we would like to do some more. We do have more, but that is based on whether or not we think we can execute that at a high level. And as you guys have seen, we've just been very inconsistent with that. So that's part of our job, right, to figure out how much we can give them, what are the different things we can show, and still execute consistently at a high level, which we haven't done yet. So that's part of the charge of where we're at right now, trying to figure out what can we add, what can we not add, and still execute.
Not to make excuses for defense, but the games are so long, there's so many plays, and then the rules have changed so much to benefit the offense. Is our definition of what a great defense is, maybe outside of Georgia, kind of changed for the rest of college football?
I think it has. I think it certainly has. I mean, you go back and look at the stats from 15 years ago, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, I think it's completely different. The offenses have certainly strained defenses. You got great offensive minds out there, great offensive coaches. You got quarterbacks now that come out of high school that have been throwing 7-on-7 since they were 8 years old. I mean, all of these things kind of, you know, manifest themselves into these high potent offenses in a lot of ways, right? So I think great defense, there's a few elite defenses in the country, not many. And, you know, even in that regard, I remember, you know, back when I was a coordinator as a young coach, boy, it was great if you hold a team to 250 to 300 yards I mean, you know, sometimes 300 yards, you weren't happy with the performance. You know, this day and age, if you hold 300, you know, you're doing cartwheels. I mean, it's just really hard. It's just it's the way the offenses are nowadays, and there's a few elite defenses out there. And if you are, look at their stats, because they can be playing elite defense and be giving up 400 yards, 350 to 400 yards a game. So, but look, it all boils down to scoring defense. No matter how you slice it, you can look at yards, you can look at first downs, you can look at all these different things, and it really comes down to how many points you've given up. And that's always been the bottom line for me. So I think that's what defenses ultimately are measured by.
Have you changed your adjustments? I mean, you know, is 24 points like considered a victory now? I mean, certainly if you have 25, then I guess 24 is considered a victory. Like, do you look at some of those numbers differently than you did, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
I think so. I mean, you know, you want your numbers to be less than what your opponent has, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. That's a win, right? But in all reality, I think certainly the numbers have changed. You know, years ago, I think we had the number 1 defense in the country and gave up, I don't know, 12 points a game. Those days are few and far between now for anybody. And so the game has definitely changed because of the offenses, for sure. And I think the metrics of measuring how good you are have changed, but one stat has not, and that's scoring defense.
When you're evaluating tape and stuff and you go through practice, at what point do you give players who haven't played a lot in games a chance in games just to see what they can do out there? I mean, in secondary you played 4 or 5 guys against Georgia State. What point are you like, all right, let's give this other guy a chance. This is one guy's not doing his job.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's hard. You know, when you're in the middle of the game and things are, you know, getting hairy and chaotic. You want to be able to put in younger guys. You want to be able to put in different guys. And the only frame of reference you really have is what happens in practice, right? And that's what the general population doesn't see. So, you know, people can look at a roster and go, wow, you're only playing X amount of guys. Wonder why they're not playing more, but you're not at practice to see why you're not playing more. So that's the only reference you have. Now, sometimes you throw them in the game and they're amazing. And we would love to play more at every position. Some positions are deeper than others where we're really, you know, afforded to be able to do that. But it's a fine line. I'd love to sit there and say, man, we want to roll, you know, 10 guys in the secondary and six guys at linebacker. That would be awesome. But there also comes a point where the continuity matters as well too, right? Those guys playing with each other, communicating with each other. The more the merrier for sure, but that's probably a little bit easier said than done, although we are trying to work in that direction for sure. On
that note, Travis Shaw, I think played like 17 snaps. You know, obviously he's the big 5-star guy that fans love to hear about. What did you see from him on tape? Because every snap I think was during a valuable moment in the game because it was a pretty close game.
It was. We made a concerted effort to put him in there. We felt like this would be a game where he could really contribute. And I was really proud of him. I thought he did really, really well. He's a guy that really in practice has come on, and he's really made some strides where in practice when we look at his tape, we feel okay with putting him in the game. And then we put him in the game and we were not disappointed at all. So that's an example of a young guy that we hope to continue to give snaps to. And we hope there's some other guys that are young that are, you know, going to be able to do the same thing. We did the same thing with Robert Saturday. We just felt like we needed to put him in there. Our linebackers are playing a lot of snaps. We need him to play. And when he got in there, he played well too. So hopefully you can see, you know, at different positions that happening. And again, when you put them in and they deliver and they play well, you feel very confident about putting them back out there. So that's an example of 2 guys that we feel that way with.
Gene, the way Notre Dame's treating it with the backup quarterback, like it seems like, I'm no offensive coordinator obviously, but it seems like that, you know, it stacks up as a pretty big physical challenge for you guys. I mean, do you see it that way, just maybe in terms of them being straight ahead with the power running and things like that? Like, is it, every week's a physical challenge.
Sure.
Does this look that way?
No, you're right. You're right. I feel like, if I'm sitting in their meeting room right now, and we're saying that, they're going to say we're going to run the ball. Stats would certainly tell you that, that would be their number one go-to in the game, right? Protect the quarterback, run the football, use our great tailbacks. They got really, really good tailbacks in several of them. The offensive line's big. They've got a lot of experience. Probably really gained a lot of confidence from last week. They took the game over. When it was time to take the game over and take the pressure off the quarterback, they did that. And they've got guys that played a lot of football there. So, and they got some really good talent at wideout, right? Some speed at wideout. So, and one of the best tight ends in the country. So, if I'm sitting in their meeting rooms, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're going to run the football. And they're going to put the pressure on the offensive line to win the game, right? Both in protection and to, try to take over the line of scrimmage and run with those tailbacks. So I think you'll see the run game up inside for sure. I think they'll do a good job of trying to get the ball on the perimeter as well to their running backs, whether it's, jet sweeps or, things of that nature. That's what they've shown. And we've gone back and looked at, a lot of years of them, and nothing's changed. They have the same identity. Coach Tommy Rees does a good job of calling these games, setting things up for the next call, and I don't expect it to be any different. Notre Dame is built on really good offensive line and being able to run the football, and haven't changed.
You guys good?
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.